So let's talk about anger and feeling our feelings. For a lot of people, anger is their most accessible emotion. And so when they are experiencing an event or experiencing a strong feeling, they will turn on anger to avoid feeling the feeling that preceded it. And a lot of people are so quick with this process that they don't recognize, oh, I'm choosing to engage in anger to avoid a deeper feeling. It's important to recognize that anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is an emotion that we choose to engage in to avoid other emotions. So to illustrate this, I'm going to share a couple of stories. The first story is a memory that I have just sort of seared into my brain. I took my kids over to it's sort of like a festival, and it's something that happens yearly in our area. And I took them to this place, and it's sort of a community area. So there were a lot of families around, a lot of vendors, a lot of delicious food. It was just something that there was a big community around. Well, there was this one family that I noticed that seemed to be sort of like worried. And so I was just paying closer attention, and all of a sudden I recognized they're missing their child. And they, specifically the father, was starting to get help looking for the child. And at this point, there was not, this strong feeling of panic. It was just like, hey, have you seen this kid? Like, looking for the child. But there was no strong sense of fear yet. Well, the longer and longer he was gone, the child was missing. And the more and more people that this father engaged in the search, the more the panic started to be palpable. The community started to recognize, oh, there's a missing child. And so it was like sort of growing the number of people who were looking for this child. So there are other people, hey, have you seen a child who's wearing this color shirt? Hey, have you? And it sort of became like a community event where, oh no, there's a child missing. And it started feeling scary for not just this father, but for like the community at large. Because like the time kept passing and nobody had seen the child, and it started to feel like, oh my gosh, there's like, this might not end well. And it felt awful. It felt awful to be watching. It felt awful to be helping, to be asking around. It was a terrible feeling. And you could just feel the panic rising. You could feel the fear rising in everybody, but it's most especially, obviously, that family. And eventually, the child finds their way back and is totally oblivious to the fact that everyone's sort of in a panic. And there was a split second of relief in this father's posture. And then immediately he engaged his anger. And he went from this immediate relief of, oh my God, he's safe and he's back, to how dare you, don't ever do this. And he grabbed him so angrily and he started bringing him to the car. And I'm pretty sure that child got railed into, yelled at, maybe spanked. If I had to put money on it, he probably was spanked for that. And so this child's experience of that moment was, everything's fine. I was like doing this thing and I was having so much fun. I wanted to come tell dad about it. And all of a sudden there's immediate anger, and it was probably pretty confusing for that child. But for that father, the experience was such intense fear, dread, deep sadness probably, and just this sinking feeling of, oh my God, is this really happening? Oh my God, it might be really happening. And that was so intense that anger, that shifting into a control feeling, felt safer. And And so he did that. And I was watching, knowing and feeling sad about that moment and thinking about what that child would have needed and really what that father would have needed in that moment to really engage in the true feeling he was experiencing, which was fear that was so deep and that was so intense that he couldn't stand it anymore. So that he had to choose to let that anger, let that shift into anger, and then let that anger out. And he chose the child as the recipient of that anger. Now the experience would have been really, really different if he was able to stay in his vulnerability and stay in the relief, because the relief points to what he was feeling before, which was that deep fear. And so many times when we're feeling a deep feeling that's uncomfortable, we choose to take control through anger so that we no longer have to feel that deep rejection or that deep sadness or that hurt. We choose to engage in anger and take this control posture that allows us to escape from that feeling of powerlessness, that feeling of fear, so that we no longer have to be vulnerable in that, and that we get to decide then, we get to channel that feeling into something else. And so we all do this sort of, not we all, but a lot of families do this on a fairly regular basis, but don't necessarily understand that's what's happening. And that father probably didn't understand what was happening for him either. He probably really felt like in that moment, the child was at fault. The child shouldn't have wandered off. The child should have asked for permission. The child should have. And he probably is not yet aware of this, fear and anger connection, or these other feelings and that anger connection, and how we choose to engage in anger to escape from other feelings. And the more that we do this work, the more that we start to center ourselves and recognize, what am I actually feeling? What am I actually needing? We start to learn how to sit with the vulnerability of the real, true feelings that we're experiencing. And it's life-changing. It's difficult. It's difficult work, but it is amazing work. And we learn to use anger as a bell of awareness to recognize, oh, there's something that I'm really feeling. What was I feeling right before I chose to engage in anger? Before I chose to turn on anger and take control, what was I noticing before that? And we can learn to back into what was the actual feeling that was so intense that I needed to escape it through anger. And we want to just recognize that we have power through vulnerability. It would have been such a powerful moment for that dad to really feel the relief of that moment, and to let the child see the relief of that moment, and to be able to express the vulnerability of, I was so deeply afraid. Oh my God, and I'm so glad you're back. This is what's real. What's real is that you're here with me. What's real is that you're safe. And my God, that was so scary. That fear brought me to the edge of what brought me to the edge of myself. And I don't even know if what I'm capable of there. My goodness, I'm so glad that that's not what's real. I'm so glad, to feel your face. Oh my gosh, I love you so much. And to really engage in that real depth of feeling would have been powerful, not only for that family, but also for everybody in that moment, because we all felt that sense of fear. And there's such an incredible power in vulnerability and really feeling the feelings that we have. And so many of us were taught to stuff down our feelings. So many of us were taught to engage in anger because it's safer. So many of us were taught to protect ourselves and be on the defense, be on the offense with anger instead of staying with that vulnerability. And so it's natural. It feels natural for us to engage in anger. And we want to learn the power of that vulnerability. We want to learn the power of feeling our feelings, recognizing when we're turning on anger, and then recognizing what's happening for me before. Why did I choose to turn on anger? What was so scary for me? What was so painful for me that I needed to escape and take control? And when we can recognize what our triggers are, what the depth of emotion is for us, then we can learn to navigate that in a different way and meet the need that was there, right? Because that need, that moment wasn't necessarily dealt with. It was shifted, but it wasn't dealt with. And when we can learn to move through the feelings rather than dodge them or go around them or channel them into something that's different, we have a chance for healing that we don't otherwise. There's such power in vulnerability. And sometimes the messages we got about vulnerability were messages of weakness, or we were mocked, or we were taught, like I was saying before, to stuff down those feelings. We were taught that it's not okay to cry. We were taught to, to not wallow in our feelings, to look on the bright side, not be an Eeyore. We were taught all of these harmful messages about our feelings. And so it makes a lot of sense that we didn't learn to navigate through them, to navigate them and move through them, but that we were taught to avoid them. And if we're going to have healthy relationships with the people we care about most, if we are going to have a better place in the world, we've got to learn to navigate our feelings. We've got to learn to move through them and first feel them, because a lot of us aren't practiced at noticing what we're feeling. We're practiced, and our brain is primed for turning on that anger so quickly that we don't even know what happened before that. And we don't even recognize that something did happen before that. We just know this is what anger feels like, and right now I'm angry. But the more that you explore with someone, the more I explore this on a regular basis with my private clients and my group clients, the more that we explore a situation, we can get to the bottom of it. What were you feeling before that? And we begin to explore the depth of the wound that was activated by such and such situation. And that's part of the beauty of being triggered, is that when we are triggered, when we are activated and we have this flood of emotions, that's what I mean when I say when we're triggered, when we have this flood of emotions that sort of overtakes us and that we sort of lose control a little bit, that's what I mean when I say that we're triggered. When we have that feeling, it is our wounding calling to us, asking for healing. And what's so beautiful about our kids and the journey that they bring us on, or our partner and the journey they bring us on, or our siblings or our parents, what happens for us in relationship is we, rub up against each other, and we crash up against each other in these moments, and we are triggering each other. And that triggering is a way to highlight the wounds that we need to work on. And not everybody's safe to work on those wounds with. So you want to make sure that you have a safe place to work on them. But that triggering is a message from your inner child, from your inner wisdom that says, I need help here. And so we want to recognize that the people who trigger us, whether or not it is their intention, they are offering us a gift. And our children offer us these beautiful gifts when they trigger us. Our partners are offering us these beautiful gifts when they trigger us, whether or not they know that that's what they're doing. But how we receive that, how we recognize that, changes it into a gift. And we can develop deeper healing, deeper growth by accepting that and recognizing what's here for me. What's here for me in this gift, and how do I become my better self by moving through this? How do I move through this? What's my next step? What's my next step to making this trigger not as powerful for me? What's behind this? What is my inner child asking for here? What is the message that I need? What is the safety that I need? And the more that we can listen, the more that we can really tune in and listen to where do I notice that feeling in my body? Where do I notice what's happening to me? What are my racing thoughts? What does my body feel like? Is my heart pounding? Does my neck hurt? Do I feel tension in my face? Is my stomach churning? Am I nauseous? Are my arms tingling? Or do I feel like I'm ready to run? Do I have that sensation in my legs where I'm ready to run? What does it physically feel like in my body when I feel anger, when I feel rejection, when I feel happiness, when I feel joy, when I feel disappointment? Most of us were not taught to check in with our bodies, and we want to do that. We want to notice, what does it feel like for me? How do I describe that? What's my emotional vocabulary? How do I expand on that so that I can navigate through something rather than stuffing it down, rather than blaming someone else, rather than activating my anger and just spewing pain onto somebody else? There is an inner child in all of us that's wounded, and our triggers point to that inner child, and we want to be really gentle with that part of ourselves, and we want to listen to the wisdom that they're sharing. We want to listen to the messages that they are saying to us when we're triggered. That's when they're most vocal. We might notice that voice most clearly. We want to sit. We want to learn to sit with the feelings that come up for us and hear and honor, and then ask what they need, and then act on that, and then honor that inner child by listening, and honor that inner child by helping them feel safe enough to do something different. Thank you for spending this time here with me today. I know that you're probably watching this on the recording because nobody's here live with me. I'm just recording this for my clients, but thank you for spending this time. You deserve healing. Your inner child deserves to be listened to. And you probably weren't listened to. You probably weren't taught that feeling is sacred. That your tears are sacred, that your vulnerability is sacred, that your anger is sad, that that's a message that you need help and that you deserve help. And you do deserve those things. And so I am thankful that you're here on this journey, because just by the nature of you watching this, you're making a choice to choose a deeper healing that you deserve, that your inner child deserves. So congratulations on that. And I would say, keep going, keep listening to that voice that says, I deserve healing, that I need healing, that there's more for me here, because there is more for you and you deserve it and you can do it. And I'm so excited for the part I get to play in that healing. All right, I'll see you next time.